Because you can make anything into a movie. You can make anything beautiful. You just slap a song on top of it and it's like, whoa, look at this. Even in my day-to-day life when I'm not filming and I have a song playing, I'll just visualize myself in this scene, in this moment, in this movie. And it just automatically makes me feel way more excited about living.
Today, I'm honored to be joined by Isobel Hope. Isobel got her start in a pretty funny way. She posted one video of her friend going on a road trip during 2020, and it blew up on her. After that, she kept making short form content for a little bit. She posted more trip updates. After the trip was over, she did more day in the life type of videos, but she quickly realized it wasn't the type of content that she wanted to create. Instead of being stuck in the cycle of creating short form content, she broke away. Her videos are really like movies, and the subject matter I know will resonate with so many people who are in their 20s because they're topics that so many of us are dealing with. Relationships, love, anxieties, personal struggles. You name it, she covers it, and it's artistic and it's beautiful to look at, and the message always gets across. Today, we sit down to discuss how she produces her videos, the joy she gets from making them, how she's able to cover such difficult subject matter so well, and so much more. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you want to see even more incredible conversations going forward, please follow along and leave a rating wherever you may be consuming today's show. It really is the best way to help grow the show, and I can't thank you enough for being a supporter. Thank you for tuning in to the R20s podcast. Without further ado, Isobel Hope. All right, I had an idea for today, and it was to start with the hardest question first. So I really want to scare you right
Ooh,
now. Yeah. So it's a
wait,
really hard question. So
okay.
I need a pinky promise that no lying. Okay, perfect. No lying. And if it's too hard, I'll answer it first. Okay,
Okay.
ready?
Mm-hmm.
How are you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Doing great.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. I can't find anything to complain about. Then that's how
That's
you
good.
know everything's
That's a pretty
going well.
that's a pretty good start to the day. I mean,
Yeah.
there's there's a lot of times where we get asked that question, and I just normally give like, oh, good, and keep going with my day. Um, but it's one of the reasons why I was so attracted to your videos and just everything that you do because you're so vulnerable in all your videos, and it's just
Mm,
it's so easy for you to just show raw emotion and kind of like the darkest parts of ourselves, and you make it look so easy to do. And I've heard you talk about before how you find it easier to do it on camera, or you find it easier to talk to strangers about vulnerability as opposed to talking to someone who you might be close with or your family,
mm,
just because it's a different dynamic when you do it that way. And I kind of feel the same way, where I feel a lot easier when I talk to the camera, or I talk to something like we just met.
mhm,
But it just does feel a little bit different to kind of actually answer the question of how are you, because there's this sense that, oh, they don't have this preconceived notion of who I already am, or like how I should be acting in
mhm.
that kind of situation. Do you think that's I heard you say that in a video from a couple months ago. Do you think that's changed at all, or do you still feel the same kind of way where it's much easier to do it on camera as opposed to doing it just with a family member, with a friend?
Hmm, that's a good question. When you said there's no preconceived notion on who you are, that's I resonate with that, and I think that's why I felt it was so easy to express myself
Yeah.
to people that don't know me that well because they don't know me, and
Yeah.
there's no expectation for how I will show up. There's no expectation for how I will just exist. But I think through making these videos, it's actually given me a baseline for how I show up in my relationships. And so by being vulnerable online, it kind of forces me to be that way in my personal relationships because now there's this part of me out there that they have now seen and I can't retract that, like I can't
Yeah.
regress and go back. And so it's kind of forced me to be more vulnerable in my relationships and I've seen such a great benefit from it. I'm now able to just talk freely about how I'm feeling and I don't feel this pressure to be a certain way or conform and put myself in a box when I'm with someone now because I have this baseline online on how I need to be, you know?
Absolutely. I feel the same way when I started doing this, because
Yeah.
I always felt shy that I couldn't really talk about my feelings or just who I was. It wasn't manly to talk about my feelings or anything like that. And then I just started doing it and I got more comfortable. And then I saw the response from my family and friends, and like, oh, this is awesome. Like, you're just being you and just talking about it. And like you said, like if I ever started talking, I started saying like crazy stuff, and they'd be like, "That, where did that come from?" Like, that's not you. And I would just be like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, you're right." And it kind of is an accountability kind of thing where
Mm.
you open yourself up in a way that you never thought of doing it before, and it makes it a lot easier when you go into different places of your life. I think that's the good side of the internet, but I also think that the internet can be really really bad at times. Once you start to lose that sense of identity, like this is yours, but now other people start to take it from you. I think
Mm.
that can be something that creeps in a lot. And you've been doing this for a couple of years now, where you started off and you made one TikTok and it just kind of blew up, and you're doing a trip across the country, and now it's evolved into something that has become something that I want to know. Was it ever the intention that this was the road that you wanted to go down, or the place that you wanted to be, or was it something that you just kind of fell into and it was kind of an adjustment period trying to figure out what kind of artist you wanted to be? And I use the word artist very intentionally because I don't view you as like an influencer type. I view the content that you make as very artistic, as how you display life through a different kind of lens than a lot of people might be used to seeing it as.
Mm. I love that you said artist because I just had a conversation with someone yesterday about how I feel like I can now just claim that title. And for a long time, I didn't want to call myself an artist because it didn't feel that way. But
Mhm.
I just appreciate you bringing that up. It kind of feels
Of
like a full
course.
circle to the convo I had yesterday. And it feels like confirming, you know?
Yeah.
But I think when you post anything online, when you share something to such a wide scope of people, whether it was your intention for it to be seen by many or not, when you just give it the option to be, I think that in of itself, whatever happens as a result, you'll just roll with. And for me, I didn't post on TikTok being like, I'm gonna get thousands of followers and I'm gonna make big bucks from this, you know? It
Yeah.
was just a beautiful byproduct of me sharing something. And if it had gone the other way, I would have been content and fine. It was just a means for me to document something and share it with my friends and family or whoever chose to follow along. And I started that because I saw some other girls do it, and they started it because they saw some other girls do it. And it was just this cycle that we continued to do.
Yeah. Once you finished up the trip, you started shifting more into the day in the life type of content. And people started to really resonate with the idea that it was day in the life, but like a small town environment. And you're showing the beauty of small town America, especially being up in Maine and Vermont. And I agree that there's the beauty, of course. Those areas of the country are gorgeous. They're probably one of the most gorgeous areas of the country. But what I saw it as is just the beauty of life that you were capturing. Is that it didn't have to be this extravagant going to a party every single day, going to these brand events or whatever the influencers do. You were just highlighting the beautiful moments of life and just showing it like that. Does it ever feel like it's taking away from the beauty of the moment when you're filming it for a day in the life type of video, that you feel kind of forced, like this is kind of like a routine that you just have to pump something out like this, and it's not exactly the type of art that you want to be making, especially in like a short form type of style where you have to condense it down to maybe under a minute, and you have to make it quick, snappy, and show it in a certain kind of style, as opposed to kind of dragging it out and showing the beauty of the moment that really goes on.
Hmm. You're just pulling out all the great questions. Yeah. So I dislike short form content for that very reason, the fast pacedness of it all.
Mm,
I love just sitting in moments. And if you have 5 seconds of a clip where nothing is moving, it's just stagnant, and you're just watching it, it's so difficult for people to sit through those 5 seconds.
yeah.
And if I'm not finding joy in something that I'm creating or doing, I'm not gonna fucking do it, you
Yeah.
know? That's why I stopped making TikTok videos because it was no longer bringing me joy. And at a certain point in my life, it made me more aware and more grateful for the things that I loved and those small moments that you mentioned. I showed more appreciation for them by being so conscious and aware. It was
Yeah.
just constantly running through my mind. When you film a day in the life TikTok, you're thinking, how can I fill my day? and what moments do I capture and how do I capture them and when and how long do I make the clip. And being just so aware of that, it either makes you super present or it removes you from it.
Yeah.
And I definitely experienced depersonalization for a while, just constantly seeing myself from a third perspective, someone else's point of view. And it took me away from my own life. And when I started to recognize in myself in that, I pulled away. And
Right.
I'm never gonna force myself to do something or just feel like I have to throw something out there just for the sake of doing it if it's not just bringing positivity into my life. I don't want it.
Is that a hard realization to come to, that you're starting to lose sense of yourself? Is that something that it's just kind of like a light switch kind of flipped and you're like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Or is it something that maybe someone had to point out to you or something like that? I'm just interested to see how either easy or difficult it was to come to that conclusion.
It was very easy. I'm
Yeah.
just, like I said, like you're just so hyper aware,
Yeah.
and I'm so conscious about how I look. Like I know, though, even though I'm not looking at myself right now, I know exactly how I look
Yeah.
because I have analyzed hours upon hours of footage of myself. Just the mechanics behind it all. I'm so there, you know?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't this long, drawn out thing that someone else had to point out for me. I knew as soon as it was happening, and I wanted to put an end to it as soon as I could.
Well, I'm glad you did, because emotional intelligence, I think, is something that we all struggle with, and we try to be emotionally intelligent towards other people, but we constantly struggle to be emotionally intelligent towards ourselves. Where
Mm,
we'll feel something and we'll be like, "Ah, what's that emotion doing? Like, let's put it back in the corner over there. Like, it doesn't need to be coming up anymore." And we'll just kind of ignore it until the problem goes away. And I notice it in myself too, all the time, where I'll be producing this, and again, this is not nearly as labor intensive, which is something I've really started to appreciate as I've been doing this. Is I'll put in maybe like 15 to 20 hours of work just to do like one of these, and I only do one a
mm,
week. Now imagine doing one short form video a day, like you were doing, and now doing one long form video a week, and that involves being your own editor, being your own producer, having to kind of figure out how you want to get shots and everything done. It's a full-time job. Like, and
mm,
people will watch it, and I used to think the same way. I would watch it when I was younger. I would just be like, oh my god, this must be the easiest thing in the world. These people are so lucky. Like, they have to do no work, and like they just get to like just rake in all the money. Like, no, it's a full-time job, and now you have all these eyes on you from people who don't even know you, and they're making their own assumptions about the type of person that you are, just kind of based on what you put out to them. When you put out videos and stuff, you do have a lot of positive feedback, though, which I think is awesome. Especially people who are looking at the videos and they see, oh my gosh, I feel so seen right now. Like, this is exactly my type of day. This is exactly how I feel. You're providing me with a sense of joy. Is that something that weighs on you, as in terms of being an obligation now, that there are people who are counting on you to provide them with a sense of enlightenment in their day? Or is it something that is just a nice confidence boost to you, but you don't let the expectation of this kind of like parasocial relationship weigh on the way that you're going to make art?
mm. I definitely, when I was posting on TikTok, I let that positive reinforcement influence me a lot. I did
Yeah.
feel a lot of pressure to show up for people I didn't even know because they said that was the highlight of their day.
Yeah.
And words hold so much weight to me. I don't take anything lightly. And so I definitely was really hard on myself and forced myself sometimes to show up even if I didn't want to because I felt the dependency of others. But now with my long form, that pressure has just relieved itself, and the positive feedback I get whenever someone compliments a video of mine, I just always think that they are just complimenting a part of themselves. The thing that they love in my videos is just a reflection of the love and light that they have in themselves. And
Yeah.
I wish I could say that to every single person that comments on my videos, but I don't feel the pressure to show up. I could be gone and I wouldn't feel like I'm abandoning anyone. I hold no responsibility to anyone. And the parasocial relationship aspect, I go back and forth on. I think it's really magical and it's beautiful that someone can connect with a stranger and just feel they know them so well to enough to call them a friend. But at the same side, the person that's on the receiving end, I feel really disconnected because I don't feel the benefits of that. I'm never going to know someone as deeply as they may think they know me. And so in that case, I just accept that, knowing that I can't give my attention to everyone, and it definitely doesn't put much pressure on me.
Yeah. I I think it puts you in an environment that you don't want to be in either, where you have to find yourself constantly trying to have your time tugged one place or another. And we only have 24 hours in a day. Like, you have to
Hmm.
have time for your family, you have to have time for yourself. And I love that you're not allowing it to dictate the way that you live your life, and you're just allowing it to be a beautiful aspect of it. And one of the things that I heard you talk about is when you went back home to Maine, that you were in the lake that you were in when you were growing up, and how you would be under the water and you felt like you were breathing better when you were under the water, just because it felt like home and it felt safe. I thought that was such like a beautiful analogy, just to show that, yeah, of course you can't breathe underwater, right? But it's that environment where it's just you and it's calming and there's no external noise around you, and it's just you're free. And that's, it seems like the point that you're getting to with your art now is where you're getting to just total freedom. It doesn't feel like anybody has someone whispering in your ear telling you, oh, this is the kind of art that you need to create. No, you're just doing what you want to do because you love it. And it shows through in your long form content. And I heard you say something too that I love a lot of things about your long form content, but one of them is just how well written they are. But you've said that you don't actually script a lot of them. So I'm just interested to hear, how do you come up with your ideas, and they're so eloquently dictated by either the journal entries that you have in your videos, or just kind of the poetry. I would call it poetry because it's very just, it flows so well. But is it more just in the moment you think of, all right, this is how I'm going to convey the emotion, or is it something that takes a little bit of planning, but it's not like, oh, I need to write out like a full movie script right now as to how I'm gonna get this message across?
Mm. So I kind of look at it as there's a bunch of puzzle pieces, and I don't know what the final picture looks like. All I have are these puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to fit each one together. I'm trying to string them along to form the story, to form the picture. How will this look and feel? Hi, Dad. Sorry about
No,
that.
no worries.
My dad actually calls this my artist intuition,
Oh, nice.
um, where I lead with my emotions. I'm not analytical about anything that I put out. My videos are just a way for me to process how I'm feeling. And there's this quotation by Joan Didion that I just love that I think encompasses my creative process. And it's, I don't know what I think until I write it. And that's exactly how I feel. I don't, it's just a stream of consciousness. It just flows through me. And when we talk about the creative process, it's difficult to not speak about it in such a whimsical, magical way because you can't really describe this feeling that flows through you. And I just feel this, I guess, higher version of myself coming through whenever I speak, whenever I write, and whenever I tie something together in a video.
Yeah.
But I definitely do plan a little bit. Once I get some of the puzzle pieces together, I see where the gaps are, and I I try to fill them in as best as I can.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would never want to think too much about what I'm doing because I think that brings a joy out of it for me. That's why I create, is because I'm not thinking until it's out there.
That's beautiful. And I really do view the style of videos that you make as more like movies,
Mm.
because you tell a story first and foremost. But there's also the visual component, there's the analogies, there's the illusions that you make, and of course there's the soundtrack to it all, and it really does formulate a movie. And one of my favorite videos that you did was the one where you go on a road trip with the stranger, which I thought was really well shot and just really well put together. I loved how you were able to splice it together in the vein of When Harry Met Sally, and how you kind of did the same kind of like interview style that they do in the movie with all the couples, and you're kind of going throughout your own personal journey. I thought that was really cool, just to like see that kind of artistic inspiration cross over into something that you were able to create. I'm interested to see just your opinion on Hollywood movies in general. I was having a conversation a couple days ago, and it was on the topic of grief. So a bit of a darker tone than what we're talking about. But the point of our conversation was Hollywood doesn't really do a good job at showing grief in that kind of way, where it doesn't give an accurate depiction of what it actually looks like. I think Hollywood does give a sense of what young love looks like and what heartbreak looks like. But do you think it's accurate? Do you think it really shows what true heartbreak looks like? Or do you think it really shows what true anxiety looks like, for not knowing what the current state of your relationships are going to be, or what the current state of your position in the world is going to be? Do you find that in more, I guess we'll call it like corporatized art, as opposed to something that maybe that's more independent can show it better?
Hmm. Well, first of all, I just want to say I did not make that connection between my video and When Harry Met Sally with the
Oh,
interviews.
really?
Uh, that was not something I planned or intended. So now that you say that, I totally see the connection.
Art-
But what was it?
I was gonna say artistic interpretation, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I love about art in general is everyone sees it differently,
Yeah,
and whatever I intended doesn't mean that someone's going to pick up on that or vice versa, which I love. But
yeah,
to answer your question, I think love and grief looks different to everybody. And whether it's a corporate movie or something that's more independent, I think it's just a reflection of the person that wrote it. It's a reflection of the people that are doing the soundtrack. It's a reflection of the cinematographers,
yeah,
and their version of grief and love may be different. I think people who are more independent probably just have more leniency and more Hmm, I don't know. Like
yeah.
they can,
I think leniency is a good word. They have more, I guess, freedom. Nobody's kind of whispering in their ear, telling them like, "Oh no, you can't go there. Like you can't do this right now."
yeah,
So
yeah. They
I think
don't
that's
have to
yeah,
censor themselves.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think when you don't have the pressure or such a large team and putting all of their opinions onto it, it may be easier to convey those emotions better, and you're able to relate to it more. But in all honesty, I don't watch a lot of movies, and so I
really.
don't really know what's out there. Yeah, I haven't seen. I think the last good movie I saw was Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Yeah, that was a
and
really good one.
that depicts love and grief really well.
Yeah, oh, that's so fascinating because you're so good at it. It just feels like you would be like a movie savant type, like studying how to direct and everything like that. That's really
I did
fascinating.
study film a little bit in school. I took one or two classes, but it was such a woo woo thing.
Yeah,
It wasn't analytical. It wasn't step by step. This is how you do things. I never learned
yeah.
how to storyboard. I don't know pre production. I literally don't know anything. I just like, I know how to cut, and I know how to layer, and I know how to put music on. Like, that's really what I know.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. Well, speaking of music, I had to do this because I don't think I've ever had an excuse to do this before. So one sec. Um, I don't think I've ever had an excuse to ever show off my ukulele ever. Um, but you make such good use of it in your videos, and I think it was like your first one where you're playing the song like "Alone Again." And
Mhm.
I just thought it was so beautiful that you, first of all, played the ukulele while you were doing it, then you sang over it, and then you had all the images playing in the background. I thought that was a perfect combination of how you can use music to enhance the visuals of life. And I hear such a common criticism, and I do it all the time too. When you see like an Instagram picture or something like that, there's a filter over it, and you're like, "That's not real. That's not what real life looks like." And I kind of agree, but I think one of the things that I do agree with is that if you take a moment in time and you're just showing someone dancing in the rain, but you overlay that with music and you overlay it with a different perspective, that's real life where you're viewing something from a different lens and you have different elements of life all coming together to show how truly beautiful it can be. And I think you do that really well in your videos. And I think that to me is a really good expression of showing the joy in the little moments of life, is how you're able to combine all these elements of life into one conglomerate and make it something just incredibly beautiful. Again, a similar kind of question, but when you're filming a video or you're editing it together, do you ever see a moment in a different light once you've put it all together and you say, "Wow, like I didn't realize how special this moment was," whether it's just, laughing with one of your friends as you're on a road trip together, or if it's a video that you're making, talking about a more vulnerable side of you, and you're editing all these elements of life together, and then you can look at it and you could say, "Wow, like this is truly beautiful."
Definitely. I think music I think music is 80% of the final product, honestly. Not just music, but just the sound
Yeah.
and the silences
Yeah.
are so loud. And when you choose to have something silent, but when you string everything together, it definitely makes me just feel so giddy about my own life, about the people that I have in my life. And because you can make anything into a movie, you can make anything beautiful. You just slap a song on top of it, and it's like, whoa, look
This
at
is
this.
awesome. Yeah.
And even in my day to day life, when I'm not filming and I have a song playing, I'll just visualize myself in this scene, in this moment, in this movie. And it just automatically makes me feel way more excited about living. And it enhances the moment so much more. I love melancholy songs. That's just my go-to. And when I slap a melancholy song over a little moment of giggling with my BFF, it just makes me beam with gratitude for this moment. And I'm really glad that I capture them. But when I string them along together, it definitely enhances everything.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine what life would be like if there was no such thing as music.
It would
I,
be so sad.
it would be like just the most miserable existence of all time.
Mhm.
Like there wouldn't the just the soundtrack to our life as a whole, of course, music, but just even going outside, if the headphones are dead or the wire breaks or something like that, like you get to hear the birds, you get to hear just the wind and then the leaves falling. Like nature does have its own form of music, and it's really
Mhm.
beautiful if you actually take a second to look around and listen. I think listening is something that a lot of us just can't seem to grasp for some reason, is that we won't ever be able to fully listen to what someone else is saying or even what we're trying to tell ourselves. How important is listening to the world around you when it comes to being able to capture the beauty in it?
It is so important. I have so many voice memos on my phone of how many birds I just want to hear a little tune of, or I'll hear cicadas or something like that. I'm an eavesdropper. I love listening to other people's conversations, so I'll pull up my voice memos for that. Like whatever it is, sound is just something that tickles my spine. Is that a saying?
It is now.
It just says something to me. I don't know. Just auditory things. I just see images in my head, and it's just super important for me to stop and pay attention because I'm someone who loves to talk. I'm blabbery, yes, but at the same time, it is so important to listen. And I put an intention out at the beginning of this year to listen more and talk less. And I've seen such a difference in myself. And I think it makes me a better communicator and a better friend when I can give someone my full presence, my full attention, and let them know that I was listening to them by calling back something.
Yeah.
Um, because I think attention, my yoga instructor says this, is the first step to love. And if we can't give people our full attention, we can't give them love. And that's what we're all after in this lifetime,
Yeah.
is just that exchange of human connection. And that doesn't happen if one of you is just in your own little world thinking, okay, when is it going to be my turn to talk again or something? And that's how I felt a lot in my life. And making that switch has just been super beneficial.
That's so powerful. And I love that you bring up love because it really is everything that we're ever looking for in this life. And this might come across a bit sad, but it's not sad in my eyes. But I've never been in love with someone else. Like, of course, I love my family. I love my dogs. I love activities and stuff. Um, but I've never been like in love, like romantically. And when I watch your videos and I just see how you express love in different forms, I find it really interesting because it's something that I've never felt personally, but I've seen so many examples of other people showing what it feels like, showing what it looks like. And every time I see a different interpretation, it just kind of adds to the wonder for me. Like, is this what it's supposed to be like? Is this what it actually feels like? And then when it eventually happens for me, knock on wood, hopefully, will I actually will I actually know? Like, this is it. And I think it's such an interesting combination how you talked about just listening and how it's been able to help you be a better communicator and be a better understander of the world. Love is such a hard thing to articulate, and it's nearly impossible to define. But as you've made this switch in kind of your mindset where you're being more open to actually listening to what other people have to say or what the world is trying to tell you, have you had a recent kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like adjustment on how you view love, whether it's in the romantic sense or just in the sense of a love for a friend, a love for a person, a love for the world. It's such a hard concept to try to dignify, but is it something that maybe you've had a change of heart on?
Mm. My definition of love has definitely shifted through making these videos because honestly, like, I don't think I've been in love romantically either, even though at the time I thought I was. But because our definition of love grows and changes, I think it's only natural that my own definition grows. And I can see myself at certain points in my life when I thought I was in love. And
Yeah.
now being removed from that, I can see so clearly that I don't think I was. And I think Bell Hooks, she is an author who passed recently, but she wrote this book called All About Love. And I was similarly to you, I didn't know when I would know if I was in love. And she just explained it so beautifully. And she describes love not as a feeling, but as a set of actions. And I think that just clicked something in me
Mm.
because feelings are temporary and it's really easy to love someone, but to like someone, I think is way harder. And having those actions backed, the attention, care, knowledge, trust, all of those things should be stationary and never change. Whereas feelings, they shift, they grow. You may not always love someone on a particular day, but if you like them every single day, and then I think that's how you know when you're with someone romantically, if you have just that knowing that you can trust them. And through making these videos and through opening my ears and just hearing different perspectives on the topic, it's just allowed me, and I think given me permission to look at myself and finally ask myself those questions, because I think a lot of us just go through our lives not asking ourselves if what we believe is true. And I always try to question what I believe all the time.
I think that's a very healthy practice, and it's something I'm trying to do too. And it was one of the foundational ideas behind trying to do this is
Hmm.
I can tell myself everything that I want to, but if I don't ever question myself or I don't ever ask somebody the same kind of questions that I have, how could I know if what I'm thinking is right? And
Hmm.
I think until we do that, that's absolutely something that we'll struggle with. And it's kind of the same idea that I had with, so I the tagline for the show is called like R20s, right? But the tagline I have is it's a journey to joy. And I used joy really particularly because kind of like love, I think joy is this foundational thing that will always be there if you have what's subsequent to joy, which is, true love for something in this world, something that you're really passionate about. It'll always be there even through the darkest of times. Where I think people get confused is that joy is different from happiness, where happiness is this feeling that you get at certain moments in your life. And it's going to be there, but it will be fleeting. And you can't really contain it in a bottle and just be like, oh, I need that happiness right now. It just kind of comes and goes with the wind. And when I was trying to formulate the kind of thesis, I guess we'll call it, be all scientific and stuff behind what I was doing here, it it was really a question that I want to answer is how do you get the most joy out of the world? And I think one of those central things that you have to do is you have to be able to question everything that you thought you might have known, because if you don't, you're kind of selling yourself short of what you potentially are missing out on. And it kind of ties into the second aspect of it, and you don't know what you're potentially missing out on is if you never try new things or you don't kind of try to expand your horizons and go into different aspects. Now, you've been doing a lot of filmmaking and everything like that, and it's all very artistic. Do you expect there to be a next evolution in what you're doing? Do you think this is what you want to keep doing for the foreseeable future? Or do you think there's another form of art that you want to expand into, or maybe do a shift, a complete 180 and go down a completely different route to see if maybe there's joy in some other corner of the world that you just haven't even looked yet?
God, I hope I don't do this forever. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I never want to put myself in a box. I always want to leave room for growth and expansion. And if that means going towards a different medium, a different platform, that's what it means.
Yeah.
And I would challenge that notion of finding joy, and I would turn it into finding curiosity. And I hope I just maintain a curiosity in things. I hope I maintain interest in things. And and as long as I have, oh my gosh, as long as I have curiosity and I let that guide me, I don't think I can go wrong. And I hope I expand to different platforms. I want to start a podcast someday. I want to write a movie. I want to direct a movie.
Yeah.
I want to be a teacher. I want like I just there's so many things I want to do, and I would always love to create in some form or another, but I definitely hope it's not just YouTube videos. Not
Yeah.
to say that just a YouTube video, because there is a lot of weight to it. It's not silly, like these are
Mhm.
true expressions of myself, and I would hate to call them silly because they're real and because they are so intentional and from my heart, but I just hope that someday I can see it in other forms.
I hope so too. And when you do, I'll be there to support you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And we're talking about like relating back to what people have said. I find it's just so funny that you said that you really until recently didn't view yourself as an artist, because from an outsider's perspective, I think what you're doing is absolutely art. I think there's a lot of people who pretend that they're artists, especially in the kind of medium of YouTube and TikTok. But you can tell who's an artist and who's not an artist, who's just doing it because there's some external validation or there's some money coming in from what they're doing and stuff like that. Um, but I think what you're doing is truly art. And I find it so interesting because you've been doing art before this. You were a dancer, and you had an award-winning photo.
Wow, did you Google me?
It's part of the job, so I had to. But yeah, you had an award-winning photo when you were in high school that like got
Mhm.
hung up at the U.S. Capitol. That's kind of sick.
Yeah, it was definitely that. There's actually a funny story with that. The photograph that was chosen was an honorable mention in my state's award ceremony, and the people that chose my photograph were teachers. They didn't have really any any accolades to back them up. They just liked the photograph, and the person that had the winning photograph of my state wasn't chosen. And it goes back into the interpretation of art and my intention behind it. The people that chose my photograph, they took something out of it that I did not I did not intend to share. And that was definitely surreal.
That's really cool. That I think that is really cool. But I think it speaks to like the evolution, right? You start as a dancer, then a photographer, and now you're doing videos, and then who knows what's next. But I think at the heart of it all is that childlike wonder, where if you ever lose that, you're done. Like that. um, the childlike wonder is something that a lot of us, I think, before we even realize it's gone, we've already lost it. And I see it a lot now. I mean, we're still really young, but a lot of kids around our age, like they get going in the 9 to 5, and then they wake up one day and they're just like, "What am I doing?" And they have no desire to ever try to break away from it again, or try to expand their horizons, like we just talked about. And they're kind of content at the end of the day, like, "Oh, this is life now. Like this is just how it has to be." But it doesn't.
Mhm.
I never think that it has to be. So I guess final question for today is to anybody who's lost that childlike wonder or is struggling to hold on to it, how do you keep it?
I think I ask myself every single day, how can I honor little old Isabel today? And I really do ask myself this every single day. What does she need right now? I talk to myself like I'm five sometimes. I'm not even kidding, because sometimes I just need that figure in my life that can take the reins for me and just calm me and validate me.
Yeah.
And by honoring my childlike self, that shows up in different ways. So it could be doing a craft that she really enjoyed. It could be dancing. It could be writing. Just anything that brought her joy. I want to honor that and continue to do. And that also shows up in my wardrobe sometimes. I'll wear something that I wore when I was five. Obviously, not the same thing, but like similar
Still
style.
fits, yeah.
And um, finding old videos of myself, just seeing her joy, um, that goes back into staying curious. Because I didn't have social media when I was a kid, I feel my truest, most authentic version of myself when I'm offline, when I don't hear the noise, when I'm in that water, swimming in that lake, when all of that stuff is just pushed away. And so for others, I would just question what was that for them, and to run with it, to not hold judgment, and to continue to show up for yourself every single day. I think discipline, it's really hard. And I think for a lot of people, it's easier to take care of others than it is to take care of themselves. And I know that especially true for me. So it's easier for me to take care of myself when I'm taking care of younger me, when that's my intention. And that's what drives me throughout my day. Um, and it's definitely a journey. It doesn't happen like that. But one of the most healing practices, this is just something I'll tell anyone, is play your favorite love song and close your eyes and just hug yourself and picture younger you. Picture that you're singing this love song to younger you, and I promise you, this shit will make you sob. It will have you on the floor weeping, but it is so healing. And then just like dancing it out, just like we have so much pent up energy in our bodies, being able to exude it in some way is essential. Like, little kids, like they're bit bop booping all around. Like, they don't have, like, they're just doing whatever.
Yeah.
And I think if we just stopped looking for others for permission on how we show up in the world, we'll be so much happier.
Yeah. So what's the go-to song? Am I allowed to ask, or is it a secret?
My favorite love song is And I Love You So by Dawn McLean.
Never heard that one. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Give it a listen.
Once again, a massive thank you to Isobel. Such a fun conversation, honestly. She was so fun, too. She was cracking jokes before and after the recording. It was a great time, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed today's show and you want to see even more incredible conversations going forward, please follow along, leave a rating. It really is the best way to help grow the show. I can't thank you enough for being a supporter. Until next time, see you.